May God continue for long as the world continues, Dr. Stan, to give us people like you. Now, I will tell you that when Stan was considering this event this year, he wanted to make it particularly beneficial. And so he got together with his planners and he said, well, what can we do to make the 2009 Radio Liberty Conference the best it has ever been before? And they said, here's what we will do. We will call and we will invite the most intellectual man in the United States of America to come and to speak at Radio Liberty. And so they called the most intellectual man in the United States. Unfortunately, he declined. So they said, well, if we can't have the most intellectual man in the United States of America, what will we do? They said, well, here's what we will do. We will call and we will invite the most articulate speaker in the United States to present this year at Radio Liberty. So they contacted the most articulate speaker. Unfortunately, he declined. And then finally they said, well, look, if we cannot have the most intellectual man in the United States of America, and if we cannot have the most articulate speaker in the U.S., then here's what we will do. We will call and we will invite the most handsome man in America. And of course I accepted. And the main reason, Dr. Bennett, the main reason that I did, I just couldn't bring myself to turn poor Stan down 3 times in a row like that. So I accepted. And if for those of you who may doubt it, that was a joke. Now, as I get started this afternoon with the real presentation, I want to tell you, originally when I was invited to speak here, and some of you may have even remembered some of the old advertisements, I was going to talk about the subject of biotechnology and transhumanism. Biotech, of course, being one of the emerging fields of science, that transhumanists, which is also an emerging relatively new field of philosophy, but it's not the lunatic fringe. Of course, some of the lunatic fringe are part of it, and I guess one could argue that even those who are among the academics in the universities are also lunatics. But there's a great deal of PhDs behind this movement today, and law schools and laws that are being formed, because these people imagine using now these emerging fields of science, biotechnology, nanotechnology, neuropharmacology, genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, mind uploading, mind downloading, RFID implant technology. They imagine using these fields of science in order to alter what it means to be a human. They really do view this as the next step in human evolution. And that through the adaptation of these new fields of science, they are transhumans en route to becoming post-humans, even to altering our DNA, literally rewriting what God made, so that eventually we will have a post-human species that they see really on the near horizon. And even some of the peer-reviewed journals, and then even some of the more, I guess, sexier forms of media are talking about how within even the next 10 years we will have the first truly transhuman species walking among us. We're already seeing this at the embryonic level. It's already happening with genetically modified crops. It's already getting into the environment. But had I gave that lecture, I wanted to focus not just on transhuman aspirations, but the prophetic implications from my point of view, because it seems to me, and actually in this new book that Dr. Stan referred to, Apollyon Rising 2012, it seemed to me that much of what we're seeing in this science is a repeat of what these old characters call the Watchers did a long time ago in blending humans and animals and DNA and creating a new form of species that became known as the Nephilim, and which brought judgment upon the earth. But we're talking about a technology who at its core originally carried the idea of the incarnating of fallen angels. Now, some may see this all as pure mythology, but I want to tell you a story today about true believers. An occult hierarchy, a title that Dr. Stan has made widely known, that are operating behind the governments of the world, including the government of the United States of America, towards a new world order which will be headed by a personality identified in the Bible, which, again, Catherine was talking about earlier, known as the Antichrist, the true incarnation of a fallen angel. Now, the best way for me to explain to you what triggered the fall of the dominoes in this research for me is to go back to the beginning. It's always probably best to start at the beginning, right? This was January 20, 2001, when George W. Bush, during his first inaugural address, faced the obelisk known as the Washington Monument, and he twice referred to an angel that rides in the whirlwind and directs the storm. His comments, his references, were credited to Virginia statesman John Page, who had written to Thomas Jefferson following the Declaration of Independence, and had said this. He had said, "We know the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong. Do you not think that an angel rides in the whirlwind and directs this storm?" 5 weeks after that inaugural, on Wednesday, February 28th, Congressman Major R. Owens of New York stood before the House of Representatives, and he prayed to the angel in the whirlwind, asking this spiritual force to guide the future and the fate of the United States of America. 28 weeks later, for a total of 33 weeks forward from the inaugural, that is 3-3, if any of you might pick up on that interesting occult marker, a terrorist attack, 19 terrorists attacked the United States of America, according to the official record, hijacking 4 commercial airliners, crashing 2 of them into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City, another into the Pentagon, and a 4th, which had been directed towards Washington, D.C., crashed in a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. But what happened that day, besides the death, the immediate death of 3,000 or so people, and 24 or so missing people, what started that day was the stage, I think, being set for changes to the existing world order. Now, leap forward to Bush's second inaugural speech 4 years later, and he again offers cryptic commentary saying this: "For a half century, America defended our own freedom by standing watch on distant borders. After the shipwreck of communism came years of relative quiet, years of repose, years of sabbatical, and then came a day of fire." End quote. A few paragraphs following, Bush added, "By our efforts, we have lit a fire as well, a fire in the minds of men." For those of you who may already know this, that phrase, "a fire in the minds of men," is from Fyodor Dostoevsky's 19th century book, The Possessed, or The Devils, a novel that was set in pre-revolutionary Russia, where civil resistance is seen being championed by a nihilist by the name of Sergei Negev, who tries to ignite a revolution of such destructive power that society will become unhinged.